Despite their long-standing reputation to the contrary, during the 2024 campaign, Donald Trump and Republicans promised the American people that they would not cut entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Well, shocker, it turns out Trump and MAGA Republicans lied, and they have proposed a budget which includes $880 billion in Medicaid cuts. And it's so bad that even a Fox News host publicly grilled MAGA Republican Congressman Jim Jordan on her show, and he was visibly struggling. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we've got a lot to get through because this is potentially politically crippling for the Republican Party, especially as we approach next year's midterm elections, because we've once again caught Trump and the Republicans in a blatant, egregious lie, a flat-out lie. We're going to play this clip from Fox News Sunday in which Shannon Bream grills Jim Jordan, a visibly uncomfortable Jim Jordan, about this lie, and then we'll unpack it together.
But here domestically, because you guys got to get together on this budget deal.
Yeah.
The New York Times reports on the House version, the budget that Speaker Johnson has negotiated for the next decade calls for around $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. That's in an effort to counterbalance a portion of the tax cuts. That scares people when they hear that. Where do we get $880 billion out of Medicaid?
The focus has been clear. The president's been clear. Waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to look at.
Is there enough of that to cover $880 billion?
Well, we're going to look to find that. I do think we're not looking to make cuts to Medicaid, but certainly work requirements are something that I don't view as cuts. Work requirements are just common sense. You're an able-bodied adult, and you're getting a benefit from the government. There should be some requirement that you do work or volunteer work or something. We have that in other parts of our government payment systems where people are getting aid from the taxpayer. I think that makes sense. So, look, our plan is pretty basic: cut taxes, cut some spending, help the national defense, and secure the border.
But here, domestic.
So there's so much to unpack there. Again, and Shannon Bream's not going to pop off or anything. I was actually kind of surprised that she confronted Jordan about this and said the people are scared and even grilling him about the specific figure. So let's talk about this again. We'll get into it. Jim Jordan, number one, can't even look her in the eye. He's like looking down, stammering over his words, stumbling, because he knows he's screwed on this. This is a tough sell. Attacking entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, they refer to it as the third rail, in that if you grab it, you're going to be electrocuted politically. This is a dead weight issue for Republicans, and Democrats must ruthlessly exploit it, viciously exploit it, consistently to extract the maximum amount of political punishment. But number one, work requirements are a form of Medicaid cuts because by definition, you are suggesting that you are going to take away Medicaid benefits from those who are right now receiving those benefits. That's a cut. $880 billion as just a flat cut in Medicaid is also a cut by definition. Oh, well, they'll be balanced by all the waste, fraud, and abuse we save. Where? Where is your evidence? There's $880 billion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. Well, I mean, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so you're proposing $880 billion in Medicaid cuts, but you actually don't have proof that that would be counterbalanced in the waste, fraud, and abuse you would save? Sure sounds like a cut. Maybe you should actually have evidence, strong evidence, that there's that amount of money in waste, fraud, and abuse in this particularly popular program before you cut it. That's what a rational, sane person who likes to govern effectively would do. But this goes back to the problem. Republicans are really good at playing politics. They're really good at waging culture wars. They're really good at, owning the libs. When it comes to governing, they are objectively vastly inferior. The worst Democrat in the elected office is objectively better at governing than the best Democrat in elected office. They suck at governing, and this just goes to show what their mindset is. Yeah, this program that we promised you that we wouldn't cut, well, we are cutting it. We're actually going to cut it by nearly $1 trillion. But we think maybe it actually won't be a cut because it's actually just waste, fraud, and abuse that we'll be cutting. Now, we don't have proof of that, but we're so certain that it's the case that we have literally proposed it in our budget. So pathetic. And also the last thing before, again, we dig deeper into this, Jim Jordan's comments. Yeah, our plan is very simple. Cut taxes, cut some spending. And he just gives the game away right there. The notion of fiscal conservatism is incompatible with this modern Republican Party. And that's assuming you buy into fiscal conservatism as they understand it in the first place. But they violate their own principles. Because the notion is you should be cutting spending to at least balance your tax cuts. Instead, he just gives the game away. We're definitely going to be cutting taxes from the rich people who need it the least, thus shifting the tax burden to middle and lower class households. Again, very stupid, a regressive tax, number one. Number two, they're not going to actually pair it with an equal amount of spending cuts, which they never do, which is why deficits and debt explode even under Republican presidents. They just lied to you, people. They lied to you. So again, let's dive into it. So Project Our Care, shot chaser Lime. Trump lies about his own support for Republican plan to cut billions from Medicaid. After doubling down on his empty promise that Republicans will not touch Medicaid, Donald Trump swiftly reversed course and endorsed the Republican plan to cut between $880 billion and $2 trillion from Medicaid, threatening health care for over 70 million Americans who rely on the program. Hart Research polling shows strong opposition across party lines, including Republicans, to cutting Medicaid from a majority of voters, including Trump voters who have a favorable view of Medicaid and see it as an important source of health care. Shot. Trump says Medicaid is not going to be touched. Trump pledged that he would not touch Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits as the GOP seeks to cut federal spending while enacting roughly $5 trillion tax bill, doubling down on a campaign pledge that's going to make congressional Republicans push to extend the 2017 tax cuts much more difficult. Without cutting benefits for these programs, it would be nearly impossible for Republicans to accomplish their twin goals of massive tax cuts and spending cuts. Okay, it's just a fact. The math ain't mathin'. The chaser. Looking to slash Medicaid funding, Republicans consider cutting billions of dollars. Republicans are weighing billions of dollars in cuts to Medicaid, threatening health care coverage for some of the 80 million U.S. adults and children enrolled in the safety net program. Republicans, who are looking to slash federal spending and offer lucrative tax cuts to corporations and wealthier Americans, now see a big target ripe for trimming. Here's the lime. Trump endorses the House budget plan with Medicaid cuts. He endorsed that plan between $880 to $2 trillion in cuts to Medicaid. As, I just blanked out. The Century Foundation, I was going to say TCF, as they point out, Trump budget proposes up to $880 billion in Medicaid cuts, which translates to the cost of covering all 31 million children in Medicaid. He's going to take health care away from 31 million children. Trump budget proposes to cut, again, it begins that prelude, which translates to the cost of covering 4.7 million older people, or 56% of older people with Medicaid, taking away Medicaid benefits from 56% of older people on Medicaid. Translates to the cost of covering 3.7 million disabled people, or 37% of disabled people in Medicaid, which translates to the cost of covering 79% of all home and community-based health care, or all spending on nursing homes and other institutional care, which translates to all federal Medicaid payments in 22 states. So that $880 billion figure is staggering. It is staggering, which translates to more than 5% of tax revenue in 32 states. So they're trying to put like concrete examples of what this would mean. And to be clear, Republicans, at least congressional Republicans, are really in a rock and a hard place there. As NPR notes, hasn't Donald Trump declared that he wouldn't touch Medicaid? He did earlier this week in an interview on Fox News. Trump said that, and he campaigned on not touching entitlement programs. But a day after insisting that Medicaid is off the table, he endorsed the House Republican budget proposal that includes this plan to target the program for savings to come up with the $4.5 trillion that they're going to need to pay for those tax cuts. Mike Johnson has insisted Medicaid benefits are not at risk and says our budget is targeting waste, fraud, and abuse. So then the follow-up question, well, is there any expectation that it would hit that number of waste, fraud, and abuse? And the response, that's a big number, and it's not expected that they can get those kinds of savings. So Republicans are looking at other reforms, ideas conservatives push for years in terms of reforming Medicaid, adding work requirements to adults who aren't caring for small children. Again, those constitute Medicaid cuts, those constitute Medicaid benefit cuts. Tying their health care benefits to working or training for a job. Again, that is cutting Medicaid benefits because you're putting conditions on them. Some conservatives are also talking about shifting Medicaid to states more, limiting how much the federal program pays to states for each Medicaid beneficiary. That could increase the state's share of the program. That would, again, translate to Medicaid cuts. And the reporting on this is, again, that House Republicans, or at least some of them, are privately freaking the hell out about it. Some of them even publicly. Josh Hawley, a so-called populist Republican representing Missouri, he has publicly signaled that he would vote against Medicaid cuts. Again, we'll see what happens when push comes to shove. But this is political poison for at least Republicans not named Donald Trump. as Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss points out here.
I think Americans are wondering right now why the heck Elon Musk has access to their Social Security numbers, why he knows who's paying child support, why he sees people's tax refunds. I think they're wondering why this unelected billionaire knows information about them that he has no business knowing. And the answer, Chris, is that Doge is a magic trick. And the key to all magic tricks is misdirection. Keep the audience's eyes on one thing while you work your real will somewhere else. Elon Musk is talking nonsense and he's causing chaos and he's distracting Americans because what's actually coming down the pike is $1 trillion of Medicaid cuts that congressional Republicans are going to walk off the gangplank and vote for this month. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. I know why Donald Trump wants to do it. He's got to pay for the tax cuts for the billionaires who cited his inaugural address. But I don't know why someone like Representative Sessions would vote for it. The Texas 17th has 100,000 people on Medicaid. The majority of them are children. And for every dollar that gets spent on their primary care visits, on their vaccinations, on their at-home care for the elderly, the federal government picks up 66 cents. So who's going to pay for that when you take out $888 billion out of Medicaid? What are you going to say to your constituents back home?
But you're making an assumption, right? The budgeting process right now, Trump had said that he was going to leave the entitlements alone, Pete. What do you make of the congressman's argument?
Medicaid cuts are in the budget resolution. They are coming this month. $888 billion of Medicaid cuts. And I think Mr. Sessions is going to vote for them. And that's 100,000 people in his home district. And I just don't understand who's paying for them.
Jake Auchincloss, by the way, he's like, as far as I'm concerned, like he's up there with Pete Buttigieg in terms of a rhetorician and debater. He went on Fox News multiple times throughout the campaign, humiliated various Fox News hosts. But folks, there you have it. The fact of the matter is, Trump lied to you. Trump said he was going to do one thing, did another. That is textbook Donald Trump. He has endorsed a budget which would cut nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid, at least. And you saw Jim Jordan's face. He was panicked. He has no substantiation for this idea that you would be able to save that amount in waste, fraud, and abuse. It's a total lie. They should be relentlessly called out for it. And Democrats should work overtime to make sure that they extract political pain for these Republicans because they deserve it, and that's the only way we're going to win in 2026. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.